Oh my god, now I gotta think of a title. Not a title, but
Yeah, an intro.
it's just Kangas Cast, right?
Yeah.
Are we doing League? Is it just chatting? Or is it League of
Oh,
Legends?
like
I think it's
the,
League
the,
of
the
Legends, right?
I'd say League of Legends. What are they gonna do? Flag us?
Welcome on in, everyone, to Coffee Before Bed. I have a lot of energy today, so maybe this is going to be a good first episode, but I wanted to welcome everyone on in here. I'm Mazel, and I'm an LPL caster, and I'm joined by my great roommate and good friend, Kangas Cast, who has absolutely nothing to do with the LPL and has no idea about it, really, except for what I tell him in my sleepless nights.
Hey, I'm
So,
excited to learn. Also, this is way more energy than I was expecting from you at
well,
7 a.m.
I've
after
been
the
up
LPL.
for almost like 18, 19 hours now. So we'll see. We'll see how long that goes for.
If
Uh,
this man fell asleep leaning up against the couch of Rafa Joshi Cubby, if you
don't talk
follow any
about
of the
that. Don't worry
NACL
about
stuff,
that.
we were filming content. We're like, wait, where'd Mazel go?
Just hide behind the couch. But this is a show called Coffee Before Bed. And it is a show where I am going to recap the night's LPL action or a couple days of LPL action and discuss it with Kangas. Try to teach him. It's going to be a learning moment, and Kangas is going to learn more and more about the LPL, and hopefully, maybe start buying into the scene a little bit more.
Well,
Uh,
it's up to you to convince me, really,
yeah,
Mazel, if
I
you
mean,
think
at
about
this
it
point,
that
it's the
way.
LPL players who need to convince you. All right, let's not put it on me. I'm not touching the
Well,
buttons.
I saw some spoilers for what happened last night, so I think that they're already doing some convincing. It seems like
Yeah,
the games
I
are
think
pretty
there's some
good.
convincing. So for our first episode, we are going to be covering the first night of the LPL, which was a 3-series night of FPX versus WE, AL versus IG, and our match of the week for week 1, BLG versus JDG. Some very big highlights in that last series. Ruler coming to town, BLG trying to put together another super team. It's going to be a lot of fun here. So, Kangas,
So
hope you're ready to jump into some LPL.
yeah, and I hope you don't mind if I ask questions throughout because everyone, listeners, you have to understand, I literally know nothing. Um, are any of these teams particularly like hyped up to be really good teams going into the season?
So, just a little breakdown to start it off. FPX versus WE. A lot of wild cards in this series. A lot of new names. Some old faces, but more so a developmental style going on with these teams.
Okay.
ALIG, middle of the pack teams, have had success for IG in the past, but not recently. AL very much.
I hear that they've won a Worlds in the
In the
past.
past, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It's something about rookie and the shy, something like that. But AL themselves have had some very harsh struggles like last year, but Betty in the bot lane has been a consistent key for them to find victories. And in
What does AL
BLG,
stand for?
anyone's legends.
Anyone's legend.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And then we've got Billy Gaming versus JDG as our match of the week, and Billy have assembled pieces from pretty much everywhere, keeping a couple standouts in Bin in the top lane, uh, and bringing in Shun from IG, which was a very standout jungler. Was with Rookie when he was on IG as he was leaving, and a second try at a super team for BLG in a second year, where they failed with Uzi, Doggo, and things along
Oh,
those lines last
I
year.
heard about that. Now I remember. Okay, so that was BLG that did the
It
whole Uzi
was,
thing.
yeah. And then
Okay, because that was pretty
JDG,
hyped up.
yeah, it was. JDG were the champions of of LPL in summer. They obviously didn't have a great track record at Worlds, but they had a lot going for them. Built off the stable foundation of 369, Missing, and Kanavi this time. They've added a couple core pieces in Ruler and Knight. So very, very hype roster. Probably one of the
Damn,
top
that's
3
very hype.
rosters in the LPL right now.
I recognized all those names, so I know that
that's
that's a
a
hype
that's a good
roster.
start. That's a good start.
I've heard them in passing in the past.
But before we get into the nitty gritty of what happened tonight, it was a very long night of games. But we're going to get into Mazel's moment. It's my favorite moment of the night, my standout moment, something I cherish that happened in the LPL. And it's probably going to be a lot of sentimental stuff. It's probably not going to be gameplay focused because we'll talk about that anyways.
This is your narrative
yeah,
soapbox.
yeah,
You gotta jump
exactly.
on.
You got to give me my narrative soapbox. There was a new player for IG tonight. His first time coming to the LPL, YSKM. It was his first time starting, first time coming in. We had in-person tonight. There were some fans, I believe, as well, so big moment for a young player. What do you think his name stands for?
YSKM.
Mm-hmm.
Your stupid corn man.
Well, you're wrong.
Corn spelled with a K, of course.
It's You Should Know Me, which I think is really cool.
Wait, that's actually dope.
And it was, again, his first time going up on stage. Today, before the debut for him, before they came to their seats and started drafting, he went up on stage, walked out to the middle, took his jacket from IG, and pointed to the IG logo. And he said, YSKM stands for You Should Know Me. And background to that, he has been a fan of IG since 2017, and now he is playing for the professional team. What kind of story is that? That is so freaking cool. So that's my favorite moment of the night. They did.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, we love a good ending.
Yeah.
That would have been awkward.
It was huge. A little bit awkward. So that's my Mazel moment. Just give you some special shout out. YSKM, up and coming player.
What position does he play?
He plays top lane.
Top lane. Okay, cool. I missed that. Sweet.
Which is a very coveted role in the LPL. So
especially for IG. Yeah.
We'll see how that goes. But yeah. So my Mazel moment is YSKM. But now let's get to the series because we had again 3 series all night. Now, little spoilers. We did only go to 8 games. We didn't get 9 games. So unfortunate there. The 9-game dream did not happen as is tradition.
That's why we could start on time with the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So our first series, Kangas, if you want to ask questions, you'll raise your hand as you are in a class.
Okay.
FPX versus WE. I started off by saying, a couple things about these teams earlier when we were giving the overview, but as a whole, a lot of wild cards coming into this one. And specifically FPX, LWX is the last standing member of the World Championship squad with Tien, with Duenby, things like that. Like things people right? You saw them lift the trophy. And I think it's interesting to see them rebuilding holistically around LWX. A lot of younger, newer talent, big eyes on LWX to be that carry. And adding to the fold, Xiaolahu, Care, pieces that maybe need a little bit more tempering, but have a lot of mechanical skill to them. And we've seen some stability grow through Care. So there's a lot of possibilities for FPX. Maybe the Phoenix is starting to rebirth here, but it's still a lot of wild cards for them. While as, Team WE, they brought in Hope from JDG. They stole him away from the super team and added him to a roster, bringing in Hung, which is a newer face to WE, having Bubu Shanks hold over from last year, reuniting Hope with Iwandi, who they played years together before, not at JDG, but previously. And now we get to see the reuniting on a team of WE who were 0-16 last year, Kangas.
Oh my God!
And it's not an easy task at the LPL. There's 16 series a year or a season, so 32 a year, and they didn't do that great.
Wait, so they literally that was
they
that
went all
summer.
They went all summer without winning a series.
Okay, that's pretty bad.
Yeah. So, going into this series, it's pretty important in the kickoff day of the LPL for WE to get a win. And FPX is building blocks around LWX, trying to figure out something to work. So we get into game 1. And at 4 minutes, this madman Iwandi on Nautilus roams mid lane and takes out Care from a Hex Flash over the chicken wall. while Care is on blue side. Yeah.
Okay, so the Nautilus coming from red side walked up through bot to the chicken. Oh, that's pretty good.
It was so dirty. And then it just started steamrolling. Bot lane mispositioning by FPX led to huge kills for Shanks as they had all moved down bottom lane towards 12 minutes. He had already gotten that kill in mid lane. Then he had 2 more bot, and it was just a snowball from there. FPX was trying to kind of like turtle as best they could. They had a decent comp for it. They were looking at Akali scaling. They had some scaling options later in the game. Got a couple objectives for themselves, but then they lost the third dragon fight. And after that, the lead that Shanks had, I believe he was 7-1 or so towards that time. He was by far just catching people out, right? Emperor's Divides immediately when he saw anybody, and it was impossible for Haoyu to even find any semblance of map gold. And I think that seeing Shallow struggle on Cassante against Bew and really giving Hung a lot of pieces, even though Hung is newer, really led to WE having a really nice showing. Not as much as the Hope carry potential, but it was interesting.
Also, don't give Azir a bunch of kills. Really.
Yeah,
I think that's
especially
also
Shanks,
a big lesson.
But Shanks is an interesting character because last year for WE, Shanks was a crucial part to trying to find stability with jungle. Right, a lot of trouble with jungle in LPL comes from players being very aggressive and then communication not being there with the team. So they go for a crazy play in the jungle, no follow up, they die. And a lot of times we saw Shanks being the middleman for jungle last year, and I'm wondering how that works with a newer jungle here with a little bit more stability in the bot lane. And we saw a little bit of that in game number 1. Obviously, the kills early helped. But then we get to game number 2. FPX decided, we've had enough of this. We're going to 13.1B. We're going to take Jackson Cassidy, who just got reworked, like mid-scope reworked, whatever they are. And we're going to take it to this very heavy team fight comp from WE. They had like Yumi, they had Sivir, they had Kedden, they had all the tools.
Okay.
But Hung, starting off pretty good, got a level 2 invade onto Haoyu. And flashed. Haoyu was at his blue buff and they were from red side this time around. Flashed over the wall of blue buff to get the poppy charge into the wall and just insta-killed.
He's playing poppy jungle?
Yeah, and they were circling, bruising each other up. They had like maybe 200 health, and a huge flash play comes through, and Hung is able to get a decent lead early on. But
poppy early is scary,
especially the LPL. Like, it's absolutely terrible with the hex flashes, things like that. Like, it's terrifying. But the problem is, Kangas, I don't know if you know rules of League of Legends, the basics. What does Kassadin do?
Not much early, but he scales like a mofo.
Well, they got him early, but you know what? It didn't matter because some rough decisions around early Rift Heralds for WE really led to Care getting ahead. And I think Care is an interesting one in his own right, where he came in last year, call up from the LDL, trying to kind of find his own name in the LPL, and feeling confident to take the Cassidy in the first game of the season. I think it is super incredible, especially with the changes to Seraphs and stuff like that.
Sorry, did I hear that right? This is his first split in LPL. He just got
called
up
last year he was
last year. Okay.
Yeah, he got called up into the FPX roster from FPX Blaze.
So
which
in
is
sophomore year
roster.
then.
Yeah. I guess he was in summer mostly. So technically it's still like first year, I guess, if it's like two splits, but
JoJo, or I guess more like a Danny situation.
Yeah, kind of something
2021
like
to 2022.
Okay. So seeing those like rough decisions, good picks for FPX. It literally happened twice, back to back, like 5 minutes later. I was going through the VODs just to make sure I had everything down because I was writing all the stuff. I was watching the games, and it was so funny because I had to double check myself because I was going through the highlights, and this series of plays where they're fighting around Rift Herald, they lose the fight, they get pushed out, and then FPX move into mid lane and collapse and get a kill. It happened twice in a row exactly like that, and I literally had to go back in my YouTube bot to try and make sure that I wasn't going crazy.
Did I just like fail a buffer? Like,
and I mean, I'm going on little sleeps. I was like, maybe I'm crazy, maybe I'm going nuts, but happened twice in a row, which is, I feel like, not a commonality in LPL. Usually if something happens, you try to regroup, rethink, right? But about 20 minutes, FPX, the Cassidy was insane, right? Like, he was already 5-1. He had a lot of scaling going for him. They were finding a lot of picks around the map with him. Like, he was just constantly finding people in transition, and side lane pressure from the newly minted Jax with an actual weapon potentially It just was really hard to deal with for Team W. They didn't really have any answer. By the end of the game, Care was 10-1, and it went to, it went to 1-1. So Cassidy and Jax, pretty good.
Woo.
Heck of a game.
So wait,
right?
the late game mid laners got fed early game both times then. Both game 1 and game 2 just on opposite sides. That's funny.
Well, so LPL Azir is really interesting because at least the first year I came in and a little bit last year, LPL Azir was a lot of times used as like early poking, early aggression, but then you have that late game scaling, right?
Well, that's because they're very good at the game, I would assume.
True. So game 3, this was exactly what we wanted. LWX versus Hope. You have the previous world championship versus Hope, who has been striving to become a leader in his own right. Right, watching a documentary last year, getting to see a lot of the background from Hope. He wants to be a shot caller. He wants to be a leading ADC. LWX, an entire team rebuilt around him, a previous world champion. This should be a bloodbath, and it was. We had early 2v2 fights, ended up LWX getting a 2 for 1. A bit under tower, so LWX ended it maybe a little bit, but that led to an overconfidence from LWX, who pushed up on Kalista the next time around, and immediately jungle from WE came straight in, punished. Happened twice in a row. They dove them, got 2 kills, and immediately returned, which led to control of Dragon. They took 2 by 13 minutes, which right now in the meta, at least what we're seeing, is pretty quick. We've seen a lot of people waiting to get dragons until after the first Rift Herald, and
Wait, real quick, what was the matchup? You said Kalista, and what was LWX?
I believe it was Sivir. I don't remember exactly. It was a scaling ADC, or it was either Sivir or Lucian actually, which in the LPL is kind of scaling. The critical mass started to grow around Hung though, because he was providing a lot of catchouts on the Vi, which was he was literally just cease and desisting the second he saw a squishy member, and immediate follow-ups would occur. Iwandi's Soraka, literally every fight that FPX were trying to do anything, find picks, the health bars just didn't move because Soraka had already gotten to a scaling point, right? We were at like 20 minutes at this point. WE started securing objectives. A little bit sloppy. FPX actually punished them around Baron at about 28, 29 minutes. So it led to some scrappy infighting a little bit, and they actually wiped Team WE. FPX continued to get Barons, which was I was like, okay, well, the FPX is just going to run away with this one. They had gotten 2 Barons in a row. They had taken some dragons, but then the Elder Dragon fight came. WE had already had the Soul, and then they stole the Elder Dragon. And in one move, after literally for like 10 minutes, FPX had control. They had found so much advantage. They lost because of an Elder Dragon.
You'll love a game 3 win off of an Elder Steel team fight.
It was, yeah. So a little bit of takeaways for each team, right? FPX, really rough macro discipline. And it's interesting. We were saying at the beginning, right? Wild card, seeing some new players, things like that. And you would hope that some of that discipline does get ironed out at least further we go, but the scrappiness got a little bit crazy, and I think that WE did a lot better in those kinds of moments, right? Hopefully Care and Halya can get on the same page, because I think that will shore up a lot of things for FPX, especially because they have BLG coming up next, which is not going to be an easy task in its own right. Shun is so aggressive, and I think Halya is going to have a big problem. And then we got Team WE, who honestly, aces, right? You sign Hope from JDG. You somehow, some way, in the 0-16 streak since summer for WE as the kickoff of the season. Hope's found a new home. Maybe he continues to grow that leadership, or maybe Iwandi takes that from him, his close friend. It's a lot of really interesting storylines for Team WE, where we haven't had hope for Team WE and since I joined the league, literally.
Well, now they bought Hope, technically.
Technically, they bought Hope, and sometimes it
Hope.
Works. Sometimes it works.
WE, from my outside perspective, as somebody who knows so little about LPL, WE have been around for a long time. They actually have kind of like a fan base, right? So I imagine it kind of stung for the fans when they.
Yeah, I mean, they used to be a perennial Worlds contender and looking at internationals, and I think something for WE here, where we do see some of the bright spots, you still need to find a way to further implement Shanks as a primary or a secondary carry role. Like, he can take the reins from Hope if needed, and I think that giving him that kind of confidence will be really important for his growth, but as well as his growth into Hung's new jungle assignment here with the team. I think they will be a huge part to the success and or failure of Team WE this year.
So, wait, you're saying, was that jungle mid or jungle bot
Yeah,
lane?
jungle mid. Mm-hmm.
Jungle mid.
Hung
Okay.
and oh my gosh. Shanks. Jeez.
Yeah, I
you
got it.
Hey, starting to get tired. Starting to get tired.
I know more about
right?
LPL.
my brain's starting to shut off one by one. The wrinkles are starting to pop in.
No, I love that the whole concept of this show is already being witnessed in the first episode. As a man who's been up for 18 hours tries to explain something to a man who just woke up and knows nothing about the topic.
It's great. It's great.
It's just, we're starting off strong.
So that was our first series of the night. A lot of fun there. It was a decent kickoff. I think going to game 3 was really big. And especially WE coming back from that one, getting that 0-16 was huge. But then we had AL versus IG. And real quick, I got to go on a soapbox because AL is a personal favorite of mine. I've been a big fan of AL since last spring. Saw a lot of scrappiness within them. Was a big fan of Betty last summer. Even made a whole, and this was in spring, but I made a whole A block, which is our content block for LPL, based on old movies. So like, Attack of the one I did for Betty was Attack of the 50-Foot Betty. It's the play on the Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. Yeah. And I've been a fan ever since. Now, that being said,
you know what you need to do is get a banjo and then learn the Black Betty like banjo loop.
Maybe
I'm not gonna do it.
That's a little far. Yeah.
Look it up if you're interested. It's
there you
a
go,
great song.
But coming into this one, I think there's a couple things for me, and especially knowing that Sword Art is coming in with Betty and the synergy that they can potentially have, language barriers kind of surpassed to some extent. It did not look good. They picked Jinheimer in game 1, and the entire game just felt like a meat grinder. It was IG forcing the hand of AL into fights that they didn't want to fight. And the crazy part is, no matter the chaos, no matter the end up win of IG in game 1, AL were at the Nexus towers at 37. They had killed one Nexus tower. They even had the soul, but then they lost map control, and then they lost consecutive Barons. And IG literally just ran it through them in the last 10 minutes of the game because of that. And I think that for IG, that's when the big step-ups of, like I was saying earlier, the newly crowned top laner of Invictus Gaming, YSKM, and Gideon really showed. Gideon is another new player coming through here. He's a Korean player, and especially coming into a role that was Shun's for a long time, for the last 2 years, on a team that has on Wink from last year, bringing in Dove into the mid lane with the likes of Nenny already there, which Nenny was there last year, mid laner, and subbed in, was able to play throughout the year. But now they're trying to kind of change things up and bring Dove in. So now that Nenny has played this series, right, and we'll get to that a little bit later, there's a lot of questions around IG. But the biggest question...
So they subbed Nenny in for Dove in this series?
No. So Dove is still on the way, apparently. There's something going on.
He didn't get the...
So Nenny got the starting gig, but they are bringing in Dove this next week. So we'll get into that conversation a little bit later.
Sure.
But that's where this combo, this newly acquired combo of Gideon and YSKM is so peculiar to me, because they were just outright aggressive. Right? YSKM said in the interview afterwards, I will not apologize because I'm just pro-aggressive. He is literally just the aggressive mindset. And I think that's super huge, but it also can lead down not great paths for LPL top laners. So seeing this kind of promise early on, even in one series, is huge. And I think the biggest thing is they had a strategy from the beginning. In game 1, they picked Camille Vi. They were picking people out, right? It was literally on point, Hextech ultimatums or cease and desists. And they needed to play for the top side. They played towards it. And they won a heavy game, right? They smashed game number 1. And I think that when you're looking at IG and this newly developed roster they have, like that's a heck of a start for them. And
so how would you rate You Should Know Me then? Because that's like the hype guy coming in, right?
I mean, I would still say he's very new, right? And I would like to see him go against somebody who's not ZDZ. who we didn't really talk about ZDZ. Interesting player in his own right. Never has been like a really big standout carry top laner, and I think he got pretty aggressed on by YSKM. But again, it all goes to the learning curve. YSKM is going to come up against some of the top laners, and it might not go as well, right? So I think there's a lot there. Now, game 2, it was chaos, man. We had jungle fights earlier. It was like 1v1s, 2v2s. But again, IG, it feels like when you are arm wrestling somebody, Kangas, you force them to play into your hand and how you want to arm wrestle. It feels like, and that is exactly
grind them out, baby.
Yeah, that is exactly how IG did this. They were literally just going into the enemy jungle with 2 people and fighting whoever they saw. What happens there. They fight more, 3v3s, 4v4s, and then it just turns into skirmishes. And AL just kept getting caught in this. And one of the most difficult parts was that it just continued to happen. You didn't see that synergy with Betty and Sword Art. You didn't see Harder, who I haven't even talked about, was the Solo King Challenge winner, which is like our 1v1 tournament in the All-Stars. Very, very awesome come up, at least from him in the LDL, now the LPL, especially having subbed in last year a little bit. This guy is mechanically intense, man. Like, he will blow out mid laners if you give him a chance, and he just never looked like the same Harder in this series. And I think that's something that Anyone's Legends is really going to have to look at. Maybe, by the way, Kangas, maybe this will make you feel bad, but Harder had a mullet, and he cut it, though, and then he dyed it blonde.
What?
And then now we're here in 2023. So, I don't know. I'm not drawing any conclusions, but...
Wait, which player was that?
Harder for AL.
Harder? Mm-hmm. I'm never going to be a Harder fan, ever.
I'm a Harder fan, because that guy
Unless
is intense.
he grows it back out.
He might.
You hear that, Harder? If you want this fan,
so
you bring back the mullet that I've never seen.
You've never seen. So, just really quick, we talked about some of the newer players for IG, but a big standouts for me and a core piece to IG are going to be On and Wink. Wink, a little bit newer to the scene, was here last year in the LPL. Wink, obviously, standard general type support. I think it's really interesting to see On still getting his comfort. He is a very well-known Draven player, and he got to bring it out in game 2. Mixing it with Wink, who we've heard already in interviews now, and then YSKM said it after the series itself, was like, literally, Wink is the boss man. Like, he is literally leading us. He is who we listen to. He motivates us. And to hear that kind of background to it, and see On is still allowed to kind of do these super big confidence picks in the Draven and carry, I think it's super, super big. And Wink was on a Blitzcrank in game 2, so he's just enabling his carry and aggression.
Draven Blitzcrank sounds disgusting at pro play.
It was dirty. It was really dirty.
How many kills did they have by like 10 minutes?
Ooh, that's great. I don't actually think it was that much. It was a bit of a stomp game. I think they had a decent amount, but then it was just about control around the map. Because the strong solo lanes that Gideon got to play around, he played Viego. Oh, it wasn't Camille. It was Viego last game. It was Camille Viego, not Vi. Apologies. But he got to play Viego again. And again, it was literally just YSKM and him catching people out constantly. And they just kept forcing fights and kept getting catches. And you got a 2-0 victory for IG to kick off the season.
Not bad.
I think the biggest thing for me was that IG were just scrappy. And that's an important factor in LPL that some teams are able to harness and most teams aren't. But to have a scrappy team, also throwing in new players like YSKM and Gideon in that, and having some stability from Nenny and mid lane during this series throws everything for a loop for IG. Because do they bring in Dove? Do they just keep the roster they have now? There's a lot of questions left.
If you start off hot with a player that's subbing in, technically,
he was the starter last year, so Dove is technically like trying to be his replacement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. And you said Dove's going to be in for next week, most likely?
Supposedly joining the team, like coming and like being at the facility next. I don't know if he'll actually start, but he will be like available. So AL definitely looking a little bit discombobulated. Like biggest thing is I just need Betty to get to comfort. He carried so many games 1v9 last summer when they found success towards the end of the split. Like he needs to find comfort, and Harder has to be able to kind of adjust to the LPL format away from the LDL and find ways to like. For me, it's the communication and cohesion with teams. Harder is a great player mechanically, but it's about how he plays with the team. And I think sometimes that can be lacking. Mullet or no mullet.
Mullet.
Yeah, mullet.
The
for sure.
people have spoken.
And then Xiaohao a little bit less so. I think he will be very good for stabilization, but you've got to have those strong lanes first to really find Xiaohao's success. And they're facing up against TES next, which is not going to be easy in its own right. All these teams we're talking about tonight have really rough schedules coming up. So
yeah, what's like the power? Did you post a power rankings?
I
or anything?
did
know that you were
post the
gonna work
power
on it.
rankings.
All
I
right,
got
is this
it
where you
out a
show that?
minute
Is that,
after.
is that on your Twitter? Where
It
can
is
I
on
see
my
that? I want
Twitter,
to pull that
yeah.
up.
It's on my Twitter.
All right, I'm gonna look it up so that way I can at least have like a frame of reference. Because again, you have to understand. I know
No,
nothing.
nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely TES, JDG, Weibo, all top teams for sure.
Oh, when I search Lennon's Twitter, I get a furry game ad. Interesting.
Okay.
Oh, look at that. I don't know if that says more about my algorithm or your account, but
Guess we'll
it says
find out.
some.
All right. So now we get to go to our last game of the night, a series of the night. It was our match of the week, BLG versus JDG. A couple of important things coming into this one. I've already kind of alluded to it. BLG super team concept is back, revamping after last year's failed experiments with Uzi, Doggo, Fofo. A lot of bad things happening in that team last year. Bringing in Shun, my GOAT, and giving him, for the first time, at least it seems since he was with Rookie at IG and the Shy, right? He's actually got a stable carry-oriented team. He's got Ben in the top lane. He's got Yagao in the mid lane, who is a very roaming carry-style mid laner as well. And Shun's aggressive playstyle can really just shine straight through because of that. And I think that's something that Shun has been missing for a lot of time, especially when he was spending years on IG after Rookie left. And even when Rookie was there, I think there was a lot of miscommunication in the jungle. And so I think Shun still suffers from going too ham sometimes. And my big eye on is for his growth in like tempered style and making sure that he is not just inting away his games before his team can get a grasp on the situation.
And Shun's the bot laner?
He's the jungle.
Jungle, okay.
And I think Elk and On, they have to be consistent for this team. You have to put the focus on the top three, on top laner Ben, on jungler Shun, and on mid laner Yagao. And you have to be able to have stability that you're not going to lose the game to these incredible ADCs we have in the LPL in the bot side because of Elk and On. And the biggest duality for me is, do they become stable or do they actually become carries? Because we have seen Elk in his own right be a carry potential last year. So there's a lot of question marks for BLG. And I actually have the pretty high my power rank list with maybe a little bit of bias. But
you got them fourth.
Jeez. Yeah, no bias.
You have IG 16th.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So JDG, the other super team, they're building around their returning core of 369, Missing, and Kanavi. Kanavi obviously has made waves in his jungle pathing, the aggressive style he brings. He's been cultivating his name in the LPL for the last couple of years. 369 has grown into a big name for the LPL as well as carry top laner, either rolling those 3s, 6s, or 9s. And then Missing himself, he was paired up with Hope last year. Not the greatest synergy between the two. And I think watching some of the documentaries, you could see some of that. And maybe that's why Hope wanted to be more of a leader. But Missing, I'll just give a foreshadowing. That man popped off tonight. So it ain't his fault.
Okay.
But JDG, they've filled up their roster with star-studded talent, right? Like you had a pretty full cup, and then you put diamonds, you bedazzled it, and you added more of whatever you were drinking to it. Because they added Ruler from the LCK, longtime standout for Gen G, world champion as well, and Knight, the golden left hand of TES, who had been there for years, had made his name there, it felt like. And now coming to JDG, the people that knocked him down last year in the finals, to come and try to win a championship of his own there. So it's really cool storylines. The Ruler storyline, the fact that he comes in changing things after so much time and trying to just change his career, change his path. I think it's really interesting and into a world of the LPL where we had just the likes of Viper leave and now Ruler's coming in to replace. I think there's a lot of stuff going on in terms of the ADC position.
The fact that you only like just looking at this roster again from an outside lens, like I know all these names. I've at least gotten a lot of their stories from like international global broadcasts. And the fact you have them ranked 3rd in your power rankings is kind of terrifying to me. Because to me, like this seems like it should be a first place team, just from what I have of understanding.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ifs for them though, and a lot for me is Ruler being a bit of a question mark and not exact. I mean, he has had recent success, but not having that consistent success over the last little while. And I think Kanavi is going to be the most important part of this team, and I think he should be the face of the team because he is a carry jungler and he will absolutely carry games. This man is a 1v9 potential, and if he has the right team around him, you can make him look great. And you could see that with JDG last year to some extent, falling off at Worlds, falling off towards the end. So there's a lot to play around for Kanavi, and it's about how they use him to some extent. So we get into the games, my friend. We had 3 full games. It was a 2-1 for JDG, so my boys BLG fell, unfortunately. But in game 1...
rough day for Mazel's favorite team.
Yeah, seriously, it's not going great. Game 1, BLG literally went top lane twice in 10 minutes. Killed 369 twice, gave both kills to Ben. And from that point...
matchup?
I believe it was... Ooh, that's a good question. It was Camille...
I'm testing your memory now.
Man,
After
dude, you can't do that when I'm sleeping. Come on. I don't.
What was the top lane matchup in game 5 of 8 games from last time?
Great question. Professor doesn't know, and you don't get to ask him more questions.
All right.
I don't remember. They were playing a lot of carry top laners the whole time. That's the shtick for both of these guys. But the 2 kills to Ben early just kind of set him up, but they were consistently, BLG themselves, getting catches around mid-game, like 15 to 25 minutes, pushing with Rift Heralds towards the end of that, like 15, 16 minutes. And then the 3rd dragon fight, which JDG had already gotten 2 dragons. Kanavi and Ruler literally 2v5'd. It was not a 2v. Okay, it's not literally. Let's take that back. It felt like literally they were 2v5ing. And it just became a point where Ruler was on Sivir and nobody could touch him. And I want to say it was Zeri Yumi Zeri Lulu versus Yumi Sivir. And it was Ruler on the Sivir. And there just got to a point in team fights.
Couldn't get on Sivir. Wow.
There just got to a point in team fights where literally like they would try their hardest to get Ruler, and he would just be going away with the ricochets, and you just see health bars kind of falling. So, couple picks come out in team fights. Kanavi, Ruler get that big team fight. BLG then go try to get picks behind Baron Pit at 24 minutes. They actually got 2 picks, but they stayed and then did Baron after that. Classic LPL flip fashion, burger flipping. Or actually in China, they call it like electric factory workers. That's like the same as burger flipping.
Okay.
Like, that's what you're gonna do for the rest of your life, is put pieces together for
a little bit of cars.
Who knows?
A little commentary.
Yeah. And
shout out to all the electrical workers out there.
No big deal.
Keep the grid together.
The 50-50 grid. They stayed, and then JDG just came and wiped them. Right. I believe they killed 2 or 3. Knight ends up popping off on the Akali. Missings on Yumi. Akali is literally just flashing, perfect execution forward while Yumi is pulling the final chapter down, trying to get these engaged off, right? And finding success, even though it's like super forced. And then 31 minutes in, right? Like they had Akali, they had Yumi, they had a lot of scaling, and Ruler was insane on the Sivir. They also had Mountain Soul, which makes it easy. Game was over. There was one big fight, and this was almost my Mazel's moment for the night. Elk was the only one left against 5 members of JDG on Zeri, and he almost killed all 5 of them. The only person left was
Just scary
Aatrox.
things. Jeez.
It was actually insane. So then we go into second game. Some trades from the teams, right? We get heavy lane trading early on, probably like pre-10 minutes. We're getting 1v1s. We're getting kills going back and forth. Bin gets a gank topside and from Shun, and they're able to get a little bit of control. Bin is on Gnar this time around, and Bin's Gnar is famous. He's very well known for his aggression on Gnar and his big plays. This man just starts carrying hard. He ends up solo killing 369 under his tower, proxying his wave. They put out the photos. Cute Beachu on Twitter, and I believe LPL Fan Club put up photos of Bin, or videos of Bin punching the air, because he does like different fighting maneuvers and techniques and stuff in the air. And they did fighting Gnar, and because his Gnar is actually insane. And on top of his Gnar getting the solo kills and things in topside, Kanavi at this point was 3-0. And there was really nothing that BLG could do because he was on Wukong. And at that point, when Kanavi gets Wukong that far ahead, he's picking off with Cyclones. He's finding a lot of damage, things along those lines, right? So they're under-towering mid lane. They're consistently finding picks. Big fight happens around 19 minutes. Huge flank from 369. I believe he was on Kennen in this game. Big slicing Maelstrom cleaned up 2-3 members of the back line. But then, my man Ben, all right, multiple big picks onto Ruler, who was on Varus in game 2. The Gnar picks onto Ruler, changing the fights completely. They win consecutive fights. They push it down with one Baron. They win the game. And that's a consistent key I've seen in a lot of these games, is that literally one Baron post 30 minutes, if you're in the wrong position, that's the game ending. Because they get into your base, they get a couple inhibs down, and they just pressure with Baron over and over again until you can't leave. And that's been the case for a while, right?
Unless you're FPX. I forget. It wasn't earlier in this year or day. There was somebody that got a couple Barons and still lost the Elder.
Oh, well, true. Yeah, true.
Yeah,
true.
yeah. There's always an exception to the rule.
Recency bias. So we get to game 3, and this was the best game of the night. It is 45 plus minutes of just boxing match, man. Fighting back and forth, solo kills. We had trades in fighting. Every objective was being contested. We ended up having 7 dragons. We had elders. We had barons. The big fight. Elder started by BLG. Knight secures the Elder Dragon with a Scatter the Weak on Syndra. JDG lose Kanavi, though. Their jungler. Still pushed down mid lane with Soul, with Elder. 3 inhibs taken at 46 minutes. Ruler gets a pentakill. They end the game.
So they just basically the same way. Elder Dragon fight into game end.
And this man Ruler came into tonight. First games in the LPL. I didn't mention he got a quadra kill in game number 1 at the very end of the game. Got a pentakill. He finally made it to the mountaintop at the final game, at the final moment. Got the pentakill. This man got double MVPs on the opening of the season, and a nice warm how do you do to Ruler in the LPL.
Not too bad.
Yeah, not too bad
of a start.
So looking forward a little bit for both these teams, but got to get my sad story out of the way for BLG. Bin, by far, looked like the best player. This man was 1v9ing. He is an elo hell. He needs to get out of there. I don't know what he needs to do, but maybe get the team on the same page, because he single-handedly almost won multiple games for BLG today. And if you find ways to enhance Bin, that's where you're going to find success. And I think you still saw that communication issue I highlighted earlier about Shun happening with his newfound team. And that's where you need to see that growth happen quickly, but surely over the next few weeks, and especially next couple series, for Shun to communicate with his solo laners, because he's got Bin and Yagao, and those are some of the best laners you can find in the LPL. And finding a way to unlock Yagao, who's traditionally very roam-centric and help team, but has a lot of carry potential as well, and make Elk and On comfortable, that's the way to find forward, right? They have to be able to carry through the top trio. And they have FPX next, so a little bit more of an easy task.
Oh, is FPX not ranked highly on your power rankings?
Not very high. Not very high. Now for JDG, it's pretty much check marks across the board. I mean, they did lose game 2, so maybe some things to come away with that one. But Ruler steps in, steps up, makes Missing look great. Missing looked great himself. Gets the Penta in game 3, crucial fight. Those 2 MVPs. Overall, JDG looked to be right back to their team fight machines. That's something we lauded them for last year, is they could take any team fight in moments where you don't think they can. And especially when they're in the lead, they will down smash your team fights. And they did so here, right, in a lot of situations. So loving seeing the Kanavi synergy grow with the team, especially with the newer pieces. He is still the main pillar, as I said earlier. And it's about how he starts working with 369 and Knight a little bit more. Missing, as I said, looked solid without hope. And I think even with 369 having some really rocky parts in the beginning of the series, he was dying into those ganks and kind of losing to Bin for the most part. He had some clutch late game engages, and like his flanks, things like that were still huge. And they're facing NIP next, which has a little bit of chaos in their own right. So I think JDG are set up for a lot of success in the early season.
Third best team apparently.
Third best team.
Can't wait. So if there's a single moment to go back and watch for myself or for anybody listening who doesn't watch LPL, I'm assuming it's just going to be game 3 end for JDG.
I would say probably game 3, the last Elder Dragon fight. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that's
into
it
the
for sure.
pentakill.
Mm-hmm.
Like a pretty obvious choice.
So it's our wrap-up time, Kangas, and I'm fading real fast. I'm very tired, and I want to know what you took away from this quick lesson of the LPL. So what have you learned?
All right. Let's go over it. Quick lessons. There's a lot of names for a lot of players, and they all did things last night. That's number one.
Good.
And it's gonna take me a little bit to catch up on all the names. I think we've learned that Mazel curses his favorite teams.
Yes, that's
they
always been.
just cannot win. Unfortunately, WE, congratulations for ending the loss streak. That's big.
Let's
16
go.
in a row, but not the way you want it. So happy that they picked up one. I'm very excited to continue following the You Should Know Me storyline, because that's just an insane level of confidence to take to that stage with that kind of introduction. And also 2-0 to win it is kind of a cool statement for your first games on stage. And then, yeah, I guess JDG's just kind of scary. I mean, this roster is just disgusting looking on paper. Obviously not. I didn't watch the games, but it even sounds like they're living up to it. So, pretty cool start to LPL.
Yeah, it was. Thank you so much for listening to my rambling. Now, we do have more, obviously. LPL 7 days a week. So let's talk a little bit about tomorrow's games, Kangas, as we'll probably be back, more than likely. We got 3 more series. I'm casting the last 2 series, so we'll see how that goes. But we've got LGD versus RA, a bit of a wild card match. Really need to see growth from last year in Lien and Strive from RA. They were big pieces to the puzzle for RA, even though they were middle of the pack team. They're the mid jungle combo. Assam for RA, will he be able to carry? That is another big question. LGD, what happens? They've got 2 experienced players and a bunch of newer players, and they are the most wild card of all wild cards. They got rid of my boy Shadow. He's no longer on the team, and now they have found some replacements. So
and Shadow, is that the Shadow that played in
Mad
LEC?
Lions. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Yeah, I heard. I didn't remember if he went to LPL or LCK.
Yeah, he's been on LGD for the last 2 years, but apparently not anymore. Then we got OMG versus RNG. This will be my first cast of the season, and this is going to be a lot of fun. I think new look RNG, they will not have Ming, and they are also obviously changing mid lane. They're bringing in Scout, things along those lines. I think will be really interesting, and especially Allah coming into the top side of the map.
Does RNG still have like a franchise player? Because from my understanding, Ming was like their last holdout from kind of past generations of RNG. Okay.
I guess he's like a newer franchise player, but
yeah, I don't really associate Gala.
Oh my god, I'm stupid.
RNG.
It wasn't Scout. I was thinking of another team. It was Angel and Breathe who they have a top lane. So Angel obviously had been on Weibo, things along those lines. Has had a lot of experience. Breathe has been on RNG now for a year, so it's a lot of up in the air just because those core pieces of Xiaohu, who was literally like their general, and the combo of
Yeah.
Ming being like mom and dad for the team being gone. It's gonna be really tough, I feel like, for RNG. But they're going against OMG, who OMG have really not changed their roster much in the last 2 years. So they've been trying to stick with this program and developing, especially Cream in the mid lane, up and coming rookie, or was a rookie of the year, his first year, and is still chugging along on OMG.
Nice. And it seems like you have them ranked pretty similarly on the power rankings. It's
Yeah,
OMG 7th,
consistency
RNG
is
8th.
key for me in terms of OMG having stuck with the roster. I think that I hold that to high regard. And then last game of the night, we've got Ninjas in Pajamas.
That's an EU team.
Yeah, with the OG Jungle King himself, Ning, previous world champion, being brought into the Ninjas in Pajamas team with, not Ninja Pajamas, Ultra Prime. Ninjas in Pajamas are going to be led by Xiaolong Bao, who I personally really like. Did have a really rough end to his split with V5 last year, but hopefully bringing out the Belveth will be a more common occurrence for him, and he still becomes this very aggressive Stenstric jungler. He is probably the most aggressive jungler besides Shun that I've seen recently.
Mm.
So, but it also ends up him losing a lot of stuff. So you never know. So those are our games for tomorrow. So a lot of fun stuff. 3 best threes again. It's going to be a long night, and I'm sure we'll be back here in the morning. But Kangas, final thoughts on the day. You excited for an entire split of learning the LPL?
Oh, absolutely. It's been a long time since I've been in school, and this felt like an 8 a.m. class. Like,
Great.
You have to
Did you
roll
fall
in with
asleep a
your
couple
coffee.
times?
I
Close?
no,
No?
but there were definitely a few moments. It was like probably the third series, game 1. I don't remember anything you said about that.
Nice. A lot of talking.
So, but I'm sure it's great.
I'm sure it's great.
Sounded
And
awesome.
that's
Yeah,
why we
yeah.
record these things. Everyone, I want to say a huge thank you all to coming to our first episode of Coffee Before Bed, an LPL podcast. It's been a pleasure to be here to give y'all some LPL insight and have my best friend alongside me. So, Kangas,
That was super fun.
it's a blast. And everyone, we'll see you tomorrow for some more Coffee Before Bed.
Good night, Lennon.
Bye.